This is a story called The Three Spinning Fairies. Once long ago, there lived a beautiful young woman named Kelsa. In the day when Kelsa lived, every young woman needed to know how to do at least one thing well, and that was to spin. If you couldn't spin, you couldn't make clothes. If you couldn't make clothes, you had to walk around buck naked all the time. And at least in Kelsa's neighborhood, that was frowned upon. Yes, every morning if you had stopped by her house, you would have heard the same argument between her and her mother. It always sounded like this. Her mother would say, "Well, why don't you want to spin?" And Kelsa would say, "Well, Mother, I don't want to. It's boring." "It doesn't matter if it's boring. You're going to spin. What's the matter with you?" "Well, there's nothing the matter with me. I just don't want to do it." "It doesn't matter if you don't want to do it. What am I going to do with you?" Same argument every day for years. And Kelsa never had learned how to spin. And all seemed fine until one day a great cloud of dust rose from the valley below. It was the royal carriage of the queen herself. She was out looking for a wife from the common people to marry her son, the prince. Well, she stopped her carriage right in front of Kelsa's house, and she heard two women inside arguing. She couldn't make out all the words, but she could hear was, "Spin, but Mother, spin, but Mother." Well, the queen was curious, so she jumped out of her carriage, walked in, and said, "Hello! I couldn't help it over here. You're arguing with your lovely daughter. What's she done?" Well, Kelsa's mother couldn't bring herself to tell the truth, so she lied. She said, "Oh, Your Majesty, it's just that my lovely daughter here. She won't quit spinning. Day and night, night and day she works. I don't know what to do with her." Well, the queen believed it, looked at Kelsa, who was beautiful, and said, "Well, if you are as industrious as your mother says you are, you may marry my son, the prince. Follow me." And she dragged Kelsa into the royal carriage. Kelsa's mother waved goodbye. "Goodbye!" And Kelsa did not know what to do. Down into the valley they swept. Into a giant hallway where torches flamed, the queen led Kelsa until they entered an immense room. The room was piled from floor to ceiling and wall to wall with bales of unspun flax. And sitting in the middle of it was a tiny spinning wheel. And the queen said, "Here we are, paradise. Now, if in 3 days you can spin all of this flax into linen thread, you may marry my son. But if you fail, we'll just have to chop off your head. Bye-bye." And the door slammed. Poor Kelsa. She didn't even know where to begin. She walked over and stared at the spinning wheel as if it were some strange object. She put her hand upon it, and she even touched the spindle, and a little drop of blood fell from her fingertip, but unfortunately she did not fall into an enchanted sleep. She couldn't understand how to make the treadle move. She began to weep, and she wept one night and another night, until finally the night before the dawn, when she knew, having failed, she would lose her head, fell. And poor Kelsa, all alone, simply wept. It was in the wee hours of the morning, though, that she heard a knocking on the door. She felt her neck and thought, "Oh no." She thought she would lose it shortly. But instead of the queen and her guards entering the room, in walked the three funniest-looking old ladies Kelsa had ever seen. Why, the first lady had a gigantic thumb as long as your arm. The second old lady had a gigantic foot as long as your leg. And the third old lady had a gigantic lower lip that fell all the way down to in front of her tummy. Kelsa looked at them and said, "Hello." And they said, "Hello, hello, hello. Who are you?" And they said, we spin, we spin. That seems awfully lucky. Well, would you like to spin some of this? We will, yeah, we will. You will? That's very lucky. What What's the catch?